Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's May 27, 2022, and this is episode 779. I'm currently coming to the end of my preparation to travel to Namibia for my first visit in 3 years and my first tour and workshop in 2.5 years. I'm excited and am currently hoping that we can all get there to Namibia and kick off the tour without issues. As I prepared, I realized that I was probably doing a few things that I have learned through experience and thought it would probably help others, so I will share my thoughts in this post and podcast. One of the first things that I wanted to relay is based on the fact that I had a small hole in the screen of my old 13-inch MacBook Pro towards the end of a Namibia tour a few years ago, which I put down to probably a grain of sand that found its way onto a key and then was pressed against the built-in display for a while, maybe during transit by car, as we moved between locations. An easy thing to happen, and I ended up getting the screen replaced a few years later as part of a routine repair with Apple, but the hole in the screen annoyed me for a few years, so I'd prefer not to get another. To hopefully avoid this sort of thing happening, despite me not liking to use a protective film on my displays, I bit the bullet and bought a good quality protective film and applied it to my 14-inch MacBook Pro screen. It was made of relatively thick and strong plastic, so it was easy to apply, and although I did get a few pieces of dust between the film and the screen, I was able to peel the film off again, remove the dust, and reapply without messing anything up. Pushing the few air bubbles that formed to the edges of the film also removed those, leaving me with a well-protected screen that I can hardly tell has a film applied at all. If anything, it's just a little bit shinier than the original screen, but otherwise I'm very happy with it. If it doesn't work and I end up with a damaged screen again, I'll let you know, but I'm pretty confident that it will just save me from any further problems with the screen. The other thing that I always do when I travel is put a protective case on my computer. This is also from experience. During a voyage to Antarctica in 2011, I gouged a nasty trough into the outside of my first MacBook Pro, which was an old 17-inch model, and it annoyed me so much that I ended up switching it out before the 4 years that I usually like to keep a laptop for. Since then, I have always used a protective case. I usually only need to buy one case and it lasts me for the lifetime of the computer. This time I decided to coat my new MacBook Pro with something a little fancier by having the cover printed with one of my Namibia photos, as you can see in this photo on the blog, and all photos can be seen at mbp.ac/779. I got mine from a company here in Japan called Yotsuba Insatsu meaning printing, and I can highly recommend them if you live in Japan. Otherwise, it will probably be more cost-effective to look for a company that prints these cases in your own country. The next thing I bought in preparation for this trip was a set of 4 Apple AirTags. This was not based on my own experience, but rather that of a client who was recently traveling in South America when they came across a car with a flat tire, but it turned out to be a scam. The people with the supposed flat tire robbed them and took their camera bags, but luckily they had AirTags in the bags and were able to get the bags back and bring the hoodlums that robbed them to justice. When I heard this story, the first thing I did was order a pack of 4 AirTags. I opted to have my AirTags engraved so that I could tell them apart, and didn't realize that this would cause them to be shipped from Shanghai, so they were caught up in the Shanghai lockdown for exactly a month. But they did arrive a few weeks ago in time for my trip, so I'll be placing one of these in each of my bags, and a large duffel bag, which I use instead of a suitcase for Africa trips, because they are easier to stow in the limited space that we have in our converted Land Cruiser. The AirTags are very easy to set up. When you pull out the plastic tab, allowing the button battery inside them to make contact and power up the AirTag, you automatically see a few setup screens on your iPhone and can then track the items on a map using the Find My Device app. You also get an alert if you leave your AirTags behind, which is probably going to be very useful should that happen without me realizing it. Other incidental items I'll be packing include a rechargeable LED lantern, as we occasionally, maybe rarely, find ourselves with power outages. And I figured that dropping a lantern on our dining table would be nicer than having my flashlight pointing up at the ceiling as I've done in the past. It's a slightly bulky item, but it's pretty light, and so won't be too much of a burden, even if we don't need it. It doubles as a flashlight, and there is a built-in alert light that flashes rapidly in red or using an SOS pattern should you find yourself in trouble, in the dark, in the middle of Africa. Hopefully the lions and hyena know the code too. There are, of course, lots of other things to take along, such as mosquito spray for my skin and clothes, and sunscreen, etc., but these are par for the course, so I'm not going to list everything up. I did want to share a quick what's in the bag photo before we finish though, as I'm really happy with the downsizing that Canon has enabled me to do over the last 3 years or so, as I have transitioned to mirrorless. As you can see, I'm no longer putting a battery grip on my cameras. I do miss them sometimes, especially for wildlife work, where I sometimes find myself holding the camera in portrait orientation with my finger on the shutter button waiting for an opportunity. Otherwise though, I'm enjoying the lighter and smaller format and the overall reduced bag weight. Here are 2 photos actually, so one showing the main gear that I'm taking and a second showing it alongside my Mindshift bag from Think Tank. As I've used this bag over the years, I've found that getting the gear out can be a little bit awkward, but it's a good size for this trip, so I'm going with this again, at least for this year. As it may not be obvious, from left to right in the second photo, we are looking at the Canon EOS R on my RF 100 to 500mm lens, and I have the tripod ring turned to face the bottom of the bag to support the lens if the bag should get jolted. Next to that, you see the 24 to 105mm RF lens, and the 50mm 1.2 lens is deeper in that section, with the lenses kept from banging together with a protective separator. Next, we see the Canon EOS R5 fitted to the RF 15 to 35mm lens. This is an f2.8 lens, so it will be great for astrophotography as well as the houses at Colemanskop, the old diamond mine ghost town that we visit near the beginning of the tour. In the top section, which is on the far right of the bag in this photo, you can see a Patagonia pouch into which I've placed my 2 extenders and my set of extension tubes, which I take along in place of a macro lens should I need to get any close-up photography. Along the back edge of the bag you can see my 14-inch MacBook Pro, which will be in its case for the trip, but just dropped in as it is for this photo. I take a second bag for my computer with all of the cables, etc., but that goes into my large duffel bag for the journey, and I put the laptop into that for the duration of the tour. More and more airlines seem to want you to board with just one carry-on, which is now possible with the downsizing I've done. Of course, there are lots of other small items like memory cards and hard disks, camera straps, ND filters, and my tripod, but for now, I've just included my main camera gear. We'll leave it at that for this episode. I'm actually flying out tomorrow, all being well, and I have unfortunately not had any time to pre-record some episodes to release while I'm away. So unless I get some downtime to record a few messages as I travel, I'll be back with several rapid release updates about the trip in the last week of June. See you on the flip side. Thanks very much for listening today. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon, which comes with various tiers of benefits depending on your contribution. Although all tiers provide access to the full blog posts for more than 770 episodes, as well as access to the MBP community. For further details, check out our Patreon page at mbp.ac/Patreon. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back in 3 weeks' time with another episode, but in the meantime, you take care and have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.